Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in! Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. We are working towards the weekend. Hope your week has been a good one thus far. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. Got a lot to get to over the next 2 hours. Luke Johnson on the black and gold in 15 minutes. We'll hear a report from Saints camp as they get ready for their final preseason game against the Houston Texans. Stefan Krajnik covers Mississippi State for the Jackson at Clarion Ledger. He's going to join us at 1:30. I'll tell you this right up front. I'm starting to kind of think positively about Mississippi State's season this year. I'll get into that maybe tomorrow, maybe early next week before we get into actual games. But I want to get Stefan's thoughts for sure at 1:30. Tony Sukalis is going to do the same thing for us with the Alabama Crimson Tide coming up at 2:15. Is there any news whatsoever on a quarterback? What does he think? And how do things feel in Tuscaloosa now that most are kind of conceding that Georgia's the top dog, pardon the pun, and maybe Nick's kind of lost it. LSU might be better. I'm just curious Tony's thoughts on that. So we'll talk to him coming up at 2:15. We will start today, unfortunately, with the news that Mason Smith will miss game one. Here's what I'm going to do for you in this segment. It's the lead of the show. It's the number one topic that we're going to talk about today. And usually that's kind of a monologue, and I give you my thoughts on it. That's what's going to happen here, except I'm going to split it in half. So for the first half, I'm going to be host of the Hunt Palmer Show, radio personality here in Baton Rouge, giving his objective thoughts on the matter. We'll get to what happens after that when we get there. Matt Moscona is reporting, certainly our afternoon guy here, that this is related to an autograph signing session in the summer of 2021, so 2+ years ago, that involved Mason Smith and Kayshon Boutte. That's Matt's report. I can tell you, independent of Matt, that I got word yesterday evening that Mason Smith was going to be suspended for the first game due to improper benefits stemming from an autograph session. I don't know if Kayshon was there or not. Matt's reporting it. I think Kayshon tweeted about it, then deleted it. I don't really care about that because he plays for the Patriots, and I don't give a rip about the Patriots. I care about Mason Smith in this game. And as I look at it, reportedly, these two signed autographs for someone, received financial benefit for it, prior to collegiate athletes and amateur athletes being able to collect money for their name, image, and likeness. That's the report. And if that's what happened, and if the NCAA found out about it, whether or not it was a disgruntled guy that got the signatures, or an investigation into the football program that we know has been going on for a long time, or however they found out, if they did, and Mason Smith cooperated and admitted, yeah, this happened, he's got to sit the first game. I know it's legal now. Sign away. It wasn't then. And he knew when he walked into that room that collecting money from someone for your signature is illegal in the eyes of the NCAA. He knew that when he walked in. That's as obvious as it can be. If you didn't know you couldn't put jelly on your bagel at one point, then maybe you just messed up there. If you didn't know you could accept a ride to the airport, well, you may have just messed up there. Taking cash for signing autographs, you know. And if they did that, and it was discovered by the NCAA, he's got to sit for a game. That's just reality. You can sit here as an LSU fan or as someone 2 years down the road and go, this is legal now, just scrape it under the rug and who cares? And you can say that. The fact is, you break a rule, there's a punishment to it. And Mason Smith broke a rule. I'm not mad at Mason Smith. From a sports perspective, which is what I'm speaking from, I'm not talking about personal lives here in this respect. It's hard for me to tell people not to take sums of cash. I don't know what they got for it. If it was $25, it's probably not a very good decision. If it's 25 grand and you're 18 years old and that's a big deal, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can't do that. You just can't get caught. You break the law, you commit a crime, okay, well, that's a whole different ballgame. You can't do that. But in this case, I'm not going to sit here with no knowledge of what Mason Smith's situation was at the time and no knowledge of what the benefits were that he received and say, God, you got to be kidding me. What a stupid decision. I'm not going to sit there and do that. But there's consequences if you get caught. And it appears that he got caught. So this punishment, in my eyes, is warranted. It wasn't legal then when he did it. Okay. Have we gotten by the host of the Hunt Palmer Show? Can we get to the guy who wants LSU to win all their football games? Can we get to that part of this segment? Why? Why, when everyone in college basketball is doing the same thing to win basketball games, my coach gets caught on the FBI wiretap? Why? Why, when everyone is doing things to earn money in recruiting and in name, image, and likeness and signing autographs and doing all that stuff, is my school the one that gets caught? Johnny Manziel just wrote a documentary. He's signing stuff, flying on private jets, going everywhere. He missed a half versus Rice. SMU, maybe. I don't know who it was. Exactly. When it's my school, it's the Florida State game, and they find out, and not only do they find out, they can't suspend him for last season because he's hurt. So they have to come back and suspend him in his junior year in the biggest opener the program has played in 12 years. Why does that happen? That is unlucky. That is unlucky. I hold the same position as I did with the Will Wade thing. And people would come out and go, oh my, well, how could you support this guy? I said, because he's playing college basketball. This is how you play college basketball. You go get players and you go win games. It's happening on Tobacco Road with those two teams. It's happening at the home of basketball in Lawrence, Kansas. It's happening out in Tucson. It's happening at Pauley Pavilion. Everywhere. That's how you win. I'm not mad that my school is winning. I'm mad that in the process of my school winning, that the FBI, instead of dealing with real stuff, decided to come crack down on college basketball, and my coach got caught on a wiretap. That's why I'm mad. I'm not mad that Mason Smith's signing autographs for some cash. Okay? They've been doing it for decades. There's a documentary that just came out. One of the most celebrated college football players of all time is flying on private jets and hanging out with Drake on autograph money. I'm not mad. Just don't get caught. And of course, reportedly, my two players are dealing with some guy who's probably a real high-class individual, sneaking around in hotel rooms having college guys sign stuff so he can sell it. Probably just top-shelf dude. He's the guy that gets upset and rats us out, reportedly. Why? And how about a year where we play Georgia Southern to open? That's what the 2019 team did. We won by 1,000. Don't need you, Mason. We could have played Grambling first. Nah. Florida State. Oh, like the crappy Florida State that's been terrible for a decade? No, not them. The one with the senior quarterback who's a Heisman hopeful that might be a dark horse playoff team with a first-round pick at defensive end in their home state. That's the game you got to miss. Why? That is so unlucky. And someone could come and say, Hunt, look, man, you've been pulling for this team for like 30 years. You got 3 football natties. You got 7 baseball natties. It's been a pretty good go. I know. I want more. And my second best defensive player has to sit out for writing his name on a few things 2 years ago. I'm not happy about it. I'm a sad guy. That was such a bummer news yesterday. I'm sitting on the couch. I just finished up a run, and I get a text from buddy. This is not good. What is this? And I can tell it's some news blurb, and I'm going, okay, somebody's out for the year. Somebody got carted off practice. What's the deal? Mason Smith, improper benefits. Wait, and then I started reading, you got to be kidding me. So later in the show, I'll compose myself, and we'll talk about what this means for LSU in that game. They've got depth there, but it doesn't mean that I can't be a sad guy because Mason Smith signing a couple things at the 11th hour and change from the NCAA allowing athletes to make money. We are officially the last school ever punished for name, image, and likeness crimes. Last one ever. Take a bow. Throw a parade. Sad, sad dude. All right, Luke Johnson on the Saints next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana Loyal, elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. Been telling you all summer about Corey Barr. Truly a champion of Louisiana. Somebody who leaves the state briefly to make a name for himself in the culinary world. Food Network, beats Bobby Flay, next Food Network star. And with those accomplishments comes some fame and opportunity. He says, no, going home. Home's important. I'm going to better the state of Louisiana. That's why Corey Barr operates his 3 businesses in Monroe, Louisiana, which is home for him. If you know of someone like Corey who's bettering his hometown, who's bettering her hometown, who's doing great philanthropic work, could be a person, nonprofit, business, whatever, nominate them to be a champion of Louisiana at LWC's website, lwcc.com/champions. And who knows, they could show up right here on the Hunt Palmer Show as a champion of Louisiana. Corey Barr is a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 7.
Henniger, join us for the Friday edition of Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road. Troy Macker and Bruce Marshall with us, and we're ready for Week 0. Football is finally here. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. Looking for your weekend groceries? Head on by any Rouse's location. We love Burbank and Lee location. We're there every single Friday, except T-Bob going to be there today. So if you're looking for your groceries this weekend and want to see T-Bob, he's probably got some gift cards and some hats and cups and shirts and general banter. Get on by the Rouse's Burbank and Lee today. He will be there. Set off to Jim's Firearms Hotline. Our guy Luke Johnson covers the black and gold for the Advocate. Joins us now. Luke, how sad are you not to be in L.A. anymore?
Listen to me, man. I got up this morning at like 5:30 because I'm like, this is going to be the only time when it's completely bearable to be outside. I'm going to go for a run. It's going to be great. Opened my door to my backyard this morning to let my dogs out, and it felt like I'd walked into an oven at 5:30 in the morning. This is BS. This weather does not. Nobody should be subjected to this. I think everybody should get to wake up and have it be 60 degrees and perfect outside. This hurricane that they had out there was like a light rainstorm. Like, let's get those kind of hurricanes here too. Like, the only complaint I had is that I was apparently living through an earthquake and didn't feel it. I kind of wanted to see what that was like. But
was there any thought that the game wouldn't be played because of the hurricane?
Well, I mean, they had no idea about the earthquake, right? But they had plenty of conversations about the game itself. And from everything I was able to gather, I mean, they were talking about it, they were considering it. But yeah, I think the sense was that they wanted to play the game, which, I know a lot of my colleagues disagreed with that, and I was not really too keen on either. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who have to be there. It's not just the players and the coaches. It's people who are working the stadium and stuff. People who live in the area, where if it's really like a legitimate threat of bad weather, of potentially like life-threatening stuff like flooding. And thankfully, we didn't see any of that happening. But if that's happening and people are stuck out there, it's a big risk that you're taking. So conversations were had. It just never got to that point. They wanted to play, so they played.
What was your biggest takeaway from the action on the field in SoFi?
I think the biggest thing was that they didn't let their starters play, which I was happy about. And I think you should be happy about if you're a Saints fan. Like I know this is kind of a cop out here because it wasn't really about the action on the field, but it should be a good feeling that they saw plenty from those guys in 1 week and plus some joint practices where they didn't feel like they wanted to risk them because they feel good about this team. And that was, I asked the last question of Dennis Allen at the end of that game. I said, "What did you learn out here?" And he's like, "We learned we have a good football team." And I think that they're in a good spot right now, man.
When we talked last week at this time, you were really raving about the defensive effort that they had in Thursday's practice. You said you were going to focus on the offense on Friday. I read some tweets and whatnot, but did you have similar takeaways from the offense if that's what you focused on the following day?
Yeah, I think there's still some hit and miss there. I think the line is a bit of a concern for me just because it's not very deep. And we've seen this just kind of happen over and over and over again with the Saints offensive line, and this is probably something that every NFL team deals with, is that, it's hard to get depth there. And I think they have 6 good ones on this team, or 6 guys that I feel like really comfortable in the starting lineup. If you take one of them out, I think you're fine. If you take 2 of them out, I think you're okay. But like, if you start getting to the point like that they have been in the last 2-3 years, where you're missing 3 starting offensive linemen at once, 4 starting offensive linemen at once, these are legitimately things that they've dealt with. I think they could be in a real big problem. We've seen it throughout this preseason where they can't run the ball. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it feels like they're averaging about 2.5 yards per carry as a team right now in the preseason. And that's because they basically had their number 2 offensive line out there for the entire time. Jameis Winston's taken a bunch of sacks. That part concerns me. But I think when you look at literally everything else in this offense, Derek Carr, I think, is going to be really, really good. I don't think we saw anywhere close to the best version of him throughout his time in Oakland or Las Vegas. I think their skill position players are actually legitimately good this year. Really, they have so many places they can go with the ball. I think they can hide the fact that Mike Thomas is not like 2019 Mike Thomas anymore, and they can let him be like the number 3 option. He's a pretty good number 3 option. I just think there's so much to like with this, but all of that, a lot of that comes undone if they have these mass injuries on the offensive line again this year.
If I assume that Jamal Williams is the lead back, and I know that Alvin Kamara is not there the first 3 weeks, who's number 2? Did Kendre Miller, or has he proven he's ready for that, or do you have to go back to the LSU product, Darrell Williams?
No, I absolutely think Kendre is ready for that. I think that was, just talking about the guys who played in the game. I mean, he showed me some stuff against the Chargers that I needed to see. Right, like the knock on him coming out was that like he was a really good running back, but he just didn't know in the other aspects of the game. Like, could you trust him out there for pass protection? Could you throw him the football and rely on his hands? And he goes out there and, in the limited number of snaps that he has, he makes a diving catch, and he made some nice blitz pickups. I saw him make another nice blitz pickup today. I think he's reliable, and everything that you need him to be reliable on. In addition to being a good runner with the football. I feel totally comfortable with him at number 2. And, honestly, we haven't seen a ton out of Jamal Williams this preseason. We haven't talked a ton about him. But I think even after Alvin gets back, it wouldn't surprise me if he leads the team in rushing attempts this year. And they kind of bring AK back to more of that role that he played, that kind of like Joker role where he was really, really special his first couple years. Maybe he's only getting 10, 11 carries a game, but he's getting 7, 8 targets a game too. You know what I'm saying? And I think they're able to do that because they feel comfortable with what Jamal Williams has done, and they feel comfortable with what Kendre Miller has done.
Let's stay on offense, but I do have a defensive question that we'll get to. I saw some Twitter posts and Dennis Allen's sound from today about Michael Thomas and how he performed at practice today. You mentioned him earlier, but is he showing you something?
I think he's coming on stronger in the last week. He's still not all the way back. And look, maybe he just might never get there, right? He's missed a lot of time. He's on the wrong side of 30. Yeah, I think if you're a wide receiver, having foot problems is not what you want to be dealing with. But there are things that he's like continuously adding back to his game that just makes you feel like, okay, like if you would have asked me this 3 weeks ago, I'd have been like, I don't know, maybe like 60 catches is the ceiling for him. Like he was dropping balls you're not used to seeing him drop. He didn't look very sharp in his breaks. He's being kind of bodied up by defensive backs he used to just own regularly. But all these things are starting to kind of come back a little bit. He ran like a really, really nice Lucy route yesterday, which, it's basically what Jamar Chase just racked up like 1,000 yards on in 2019, right? These full option routes. That's like vintage Mike Thomas stuff. So like you see that and you're like, okay, I'm really encouraged by that. Today, it was not, it's just a normal random practice play. It went for like a 7-yard gain, but like it was a terrible throw by Derek Carr. He threw like behind him and nowhere close to his body, and he just like snatched the ball out of the air. Like, okay, these are things I didn't see you doing 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, that would have been a drop. So he's making this progress that just makes you feel good about where he's going to be eventually this year, where I didn't necessarily feel that way throughout camp. I still don't think he's the number one guy. I think Chris Olave is like the clear number one receiver on this team. I think Juwan Johnson's be the number two. He's developed a really, really nice relationship with Derek Carr. But I mean, if Mike Thomas is like starting to show this stuff and he's maybe your third option in the passing game, I think you feel pretty damn good about where your receiving options are.
Chatting with Luke Johnson, covers the Saints for The Advocate, @ Luke Johnson on Twitter. When I think of Peyton Turner, the word that always, the buzzword is flash. He flashes, and then you look at the production in the regular season, it's not there. That was a flash in the preseason game, beating a second-team tackle. Has there been more of that?
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody about this today. I feel like there's more substance than flash this year, right? Like, the flash part is good. Like, you want to see that. You want a guy who, like, every now and then is just going to do, like, a wow play and, just smoke somebody with just this, like, really, really quick move on an inside stunt and separate the quarterback from the ball. Like, you obviously want that. But I think the thing that's going to get him on the field this year is that the other 40 plays that he's on the field, or 30, or whatever the number is, he's not going to be a liability. Like, he's going to hold his own in the run game, which has been one of the huge knocks against him his first couple of years, in addition to him being hurt all the time. And I think he's going to give you a more consistent pass rush. And then when you add in that I think their defensive interior is going to be more explosive, they're going to generate more pressure up the middle. I think that's going to push some things to him where he can show his athleticism. Honestly, I think those three additions they made to the defensive interior are going to make guys like Peyton Turner and Carl Granderson and even to a degree Cam Jordan just look a lot better from a statistical standpoint this year. So I am not ready to say that I think he's going to break out. I think I was like kind of on that train a little bit last year when I saw the flash plays in practice. I want to see him put it together for real in the regular season, but it's been very encouraging seeing him do all the small things that add up to substance instead of just the flash.
Who's got a roster spot to potentially win or lose this weekend against Houston?
Man, I think the most interesting spots for me are looking at linebacker, looking at the kind of bottom of the defensive back rotation. There's a lot of guys there that for both positions that have like positional flex. They can play Mike, they can play Will. A couple of them, they're trying out all three spots in the linebacker. They're trying guys out at Sam too. And then, same thing in the defensive backfield where you got guys like Ugo Amadi and Lonnie Johnson who are safeties who can play in the nickel. You've got guys like Ike Yadam, who I think has had a really nice preseason. He made a great interception the other day in the preseason game, and then also adds some big value as a special teams gunner. But like none of those guys that I'm mentioning here, the linebackers be like DeMarco Jackson, Nephi Sewell. None of those guys have like a lockdown roster spot. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with these numbers. Because maybe they don't want to expose somebody like A.T. Perry or wide receiver Shaq Davis to waivers, right? Because these guys have had impressive preseasons. Maybe they keep them around and try to like figure out how to game the numbers elsewhere. It's going to be really fascinating. Weird because I don't think this team is as deep as in years past, but they have a lot of interesting guys, and it might result in just some kind of funky looking numbers on that 53 when they got that roster figured out next week.
We're inching closer to the 53, inching closer to actual kickoff, but enjoy some football this weekend, and we'll talk next week. Thanks, Luke.
Yep, I'm going to find some AC.
He is Luke Johnson, covers the Saints for The Advocate. When we come back, we'll head back out to the phone lines and chat with our guy, Stefan Krosnick from the Jackson Clarion Ledger, covering the Mississippi State Bulldogs. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel. There's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app's easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. They include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/1045ESPN and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issues, knowledge trouble bonus method expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. If you or someone who knows gambling problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge. Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Make this summer your backyard party year with Chris's Specialty Foods. Wings, burgers, brisket, steak, and boudin, plus great Cajun side dishes. We do all the prep, and you enjoy laughing with friends and family. Chris's Specialty Foods, Millerville, New Orleans, Prairieville, and Frisco.
Everybody loves Chris's authentic Cajun meat.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. Mike Triplett joins us from Saints Camp and our final SEC check-in on the Missouri Tigers. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back here on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's. Been kind of jumping around the Southeastern Conference, getting some previews from some schools in the league. And now it's time to head over to Starkville, Mississippi, chat with our guy Stefan Krajnik, who covers the Bulldogs for the Jackson Clarion Ledger. Stefan, how are you? Do we have Stefan? All right, Stefan, you there now? I guess we don't have him. We'll go ahead and call him right on back. Technical issues there. But I'll tell you this before we get Stefan on the line. I'm starting to feel a little bit positively about Mississippi State. I think the narrative is every year they're picked last and they never finish last. Somebody bottoms out. Somebody Auburns it last year. Arkansas has thrown up a couple of bagels in years past. And Mississippi State generally fields a pretty solid team. And last year they found a way to win 9 games. Now this year it's going to look a lot different, and we know that. And we'll ask Stefan about how different it's going to look. But I just feel like they're very old. They've got a good quarterback. Their defense was pretty good last year. So I feel like they're going to be a middle-of-the-road SEC West team when they're picked near the bottom like they are every single year. So I think we got Stefan now joining us on the Jim's Firearm Hotline. Stefan, you there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
We got you loud and clear. Can you kind of comment on what I'm just saying there about, the anticipation is when we go to SEC Media Days in July at some point, the media is going to vote and State's going to get picked last, and they really rarely finish last. Is that kind of a narrative in Starkville?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. It's been talked about, a good amount, between, us local reporters and even the team a bit, around media days of just, acknowledging that the expectations usually are what they are with this program, right? Picked to finish last in the SEC, and I don't have the number right in front of me, but in the last 10 years or so, I think it's, they've been picked last 7 or 8 times, and, they rarely ever do. I think dating back to like 2008, they've only finished last, 2 or 3 times, which is pretty, middle of the pack compared to teams like Auburn, Ole Miss, Arkansas. They've all kind of finished last around that, same amount of time. So it is kind of interesting, how that narrative has surrounded the program for a while. And I think a lot of it this year has to do with the change in coaching staff, right? I think people don't necessarily know, who Zach Garnett is, who offensive coordinator Kevin Barbay is. So there's some confusion of, what exactly this team's going to look like. But, when you look at the roster and the veterans that they have on this team, it's hard to think that, regardless of what staff comes in, when you have, 6-year linebackers, in 2 of those linebacker spots, when you have a senior quarterback ready to pass or break a lot of those passing records, in the SEC, it's kind of interesting to see, kind of the balance of that dynamic of a new staff that people don't know too much about versus players who you kind of know a lot about and have had, some success in the SEC the last few years.
Tell us about new offensive coordinator Kevin Barbay. I'm assuming he's not going to go 5 wide and throw it every play.
Right. No, it's going to be a little bit of a shift. He's a guy, though, that, when you ask Kevin Barbay what, his offensive scheme is, he's not necessarily married to a scheme like maybe, some coaches are with the air raid or some coaches are, with their rushing attacks and things of that nature. Barbay's kind of open to running a variety of things. His main mantra is just get the ball to the explosive playmakers' hands, right? And I think when you look at the offense, everyone knows Tulu Griffin and what he's done in the kick return game. I think a big thing for him this year is getting involved in the offense, whether it be, direct handoffs, jet sweeps, things of that nature that we didn't see too much in the air raid offense the last couple of years. I think that's kind of where you're going to see, the biggest shift is in a lot of those pre-snap disguises and ways they get the ball to those top playmakers.
It's interesting because I don't think we know much about Woody Marks, the running back, because of what he was asked to do in Mike Leach's offense. Yeah. What kind of player do you expect him to be this year?
Yeah, he's kind of a shorter running back, kind of a more muscle type guy than he is, height or anything like that. He's not the most explosive player, but he's the type of guy that just kind of puts his head down and gets the dirty yards. A lot of it obviously is a result of the air raid, but he's a guy that was getting 5, 6, 7 yards per rush last year pretty easily, right? And it's going to be a little bit different this year when teams are, loading the box and expecting it a bit more. But I think at the end of the day, he's a guy, with that experience of having been beside, Will Rogers the last 3 years, and kind of, he kind of almost has the eyes of a quarterback just because of what he was being asked to do the last few years. I think that's kind of where he steps in and kind of can be a veteran presence in a team where, the running back room is deep, but they've also got, some young pieces that they think could be really good the next few years. I think just having a guy like Woody Marks there really kind of sets the tone for what, that position group's culture wants to be moving forward now that they're going to be used in a different way.
I think one of the questions that people will have about the shift from the air raid is the role of the offensive lineman, the type of offensive lineman that Mississippi State has. Are those guys ready to do something different?
I think that's where the biggest test of this offense is going to be, right? Like, I think there's questions that surround, Will Rogers, and, we talked about Woody Marks and his new role, things of that nature. I think that's the biggest question because you have offensive linemen who are experienced, right? I mean, they returned 4 of the 5 starters from last year's offensive line. The only guy you lose is Winston Sharp at center. So you're pretty confident in any team that has 4, returning offensive linemen. You feel pretty good about that. But the thing is, they haven't been asked to do what they're going to be asked to do a little bit more of this year, right? They're not going on their heels every time and just, defending 70, passes a game.
I think we lost Stefan there as well. Casey, we're going to kind of hook back up with him. Yeah, we lost Stefan there. I do also want to ask about this defense because the defense has the guy who kind of created it in the head coach and Zach Arnett, and you've got a coordinator who was there with him and ran the defense in the bowl game. They only allowed Illinois to score 10 points. They held Ole Miss to 22 points. Late in the season, they played pretty well. And I feel like there's reason to believe that Mississippi State should field a pretty decent defense this year with a number of returning starters. Now, obviously, you have your head coach not doing everything that he was doing last year, and you've got to elevate someone to do it. But it feels like there's some continuity there that should pay off. I don't know that will pay off, but it should pay off. And I want to get Stefan's thoughts about that before we get to Mississippi State's schedule. I think we've got him back now on the line. So, Stefan, you were talking about the offensive linemen and kind of doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. Sorry I broke up there again, but I think that's kind of the biggest test with this offense this year is, those guys are being put into a role that they haven't necessarily had so much the past couple of years. Even though they're experienced, they get 4 of the 5 starters back on the offensive line. I think that's your biggest question mark right now is how will those guys adjust, not just to, run block, and I think these guys can run block, but when you get over to the course of a game, you get into the fourth quarter, you really get into those trenches, and you really kind of push your endurance and things of that nature, and then you got to go out and run block for a dirty 2-yard run at the goal line or something like that. I think that's where we're going to see, what this offensive line is made out of in this transition.
Obviously, you promote Zach Arnett to head coach, and you promoted a defensive coordinator from within as well. Should we expect the Mississippi State defense to look much the same as it did last year?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be as aggressive. I think, they're kind of, Zach Arnett's given Matt Brock the keys to that defense and letting him defensive side. You'll probably still see the 3-5. Maybe they go four linemen sometimes just because at Sam linebacker, they lose Tyrus Wheat. So they're kind of in a transition of, you don't necessarily have someone as dynamic as Wheat to play that Sam linebacker spot. So maybe you see them go 4 linemen a bit. But I think for the most part, you'll see the 3-3-5. I don't think Brock will be as aggressive in terms of blitzes and things of that nature as Arnett was. But I think for the most part, you're going to be watching that Mississippi State team this year and say, that defense is pretty similar to what Arnett was running the last couple of years.
Let's look at the schedule. Southeastern Louisiana in the opener next weekend, and then Arizona comes to Starkville for the Power 5 non-conference. Crossover game is at South Carolina over in the SEC East. Also have Western Michigan and Southern Miss in the non-conference for the Egg Bowl there on Thanksgiving night. What's the expectation in year one under Zach Arnett and Starkville?
I'm sorry, you broke up for the expectation for Arnett and Starkville?
Yeah, as far as the record looks like.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of surprising because the national perspective and the voting, to pick them finish, last in the SEC West is there. But I think in Starkville, fans are, hoping for a 7, 8, maybe 9-win season when you toss in that bowl game just because of, you win 9 games last year and you get so many of those players back, right? This is the cycle for State. This is how, their kind of approach is. They don't have the recruiting of an Alabama or Georgia or an LSU to be, competitive year in and year out. They kind of have to go through these cycles where maybe you have 5 or 6 win seasons in there, and then kind of when you get those seniors in there, when those guys develop, you're expecting those 7, 8, 9 win seasons to come about. And this is kind of that window for them. With so many returning pieces, you got to build on last year's 9-win season. I think there's a belief that this team can win 8 games. I mean, they have 8 home games this year. There are 4 road games. You mentioned the South Carolina game. You tossed in Auburn, Arkansas, South Carolina. And I'm missing one there.
I got you.
But they got A&M. 4 road games. Yes. So they got 4 road games where they've either won, recently in those places or playing teams that, they think they can beat this year, right? So they've got some toss-ups on the road. I think with that schedule combined with the veteran presence in Starkville, there's a belief that this team can win 8 games or more.
Stefan, thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on again.
Yeah, Stefan Krajnik, Mississippi State beat writer for the Jackson Clarion Ledger. I think they could win 8 games and get to a 9th with the bowl win. I really do. I think they're going to win their 4 non-conference games. I'm not too concerned with Southern Miss or Arizona, and I can find you. I can find you 4 more wins if I have to. I have no problem thinking that they can beat Arkansas in Fayetteville. I think they can go to Auburn and win. Those are road games. I think Kentucky in Starkville is very, very winnable, obviously. I think they're going to beat Ole Miss in Starkville this year. I'm starting to go down on the lane train a little bit and kind of thinking that things may be a little better in Starkville this year based on the complete composition of the roster. We'll see. That's how they play the games, obviously. That's kind of the way I'm leaning as we inch toward the end of August here. Inching toward the end of hour number 1 here as well. Our Thursday shows brought to you by Rouse's. You may have thought you had a tough Wednesday yesterday. It may not have been your best day. It probably didn't cost you $100+ million. I'll tell you who did lose $100+ million yesterday. Coming up next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There's some activity out there in the Caribbean, some activity in the Gulf. It is storm season. We know that. Don't let your power go out if a storm rolls through. It doesn't even take a hurricane. It can just sometimes be one of these afternoon showers. We haven't gotten lately, but we do this time of year. Boudreaux's Electric can help you out with that. They are a certified Generac generator dealer. They are a premier Generac dealer, which means they're in the top 3% nationwide. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux have run their company for 40 years down there in Donaldsonville. They still operate like an old school business, even though they've got some really new school things they can offer you. How about their 24/7 monitoring of your Generac generator? If it fails at any point, whether it's during a storm or just in the course of a regular day, they'll know about it because they monitor it. They can send a technician out to fix it so that when you need to rely on your generator, you can. Sometimes the kids are out in the yard throwing a ball around and somebody throws one wild and it hits a generator. May knock something loose or power it down. Boudreaux's will know about that immediately. They can send somebody out there to make it good. All their generators come with a free 10-year warranty. Same phone number they've had for 40 years. It's 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. It is Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust poll of the day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the poll of the day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty.
on Friday's OTB. The penultimate day before college football week 0 gets underway. We'll celebrate the return. Plus, talk more Tigers, FSU. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Thursday shows here on the Hunt Palmer Show brought to you by Rouse's. Get on by Rouse's for your groceries today. Kids are back in school. How about family-sized General Mills cereal, 2 for $7. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, the GOAT cereal, by the way, the greatest of all time. Honey Nut Cheerios, 2 full-size General Mills family cereals for $7. And if you're looking for some meats, got a value pack of sirloin pork chops, only 97 cents a pound. And the whole boneless rump roast, just $2.99 a pound over at Rouse's. Locations all over our listening area. Get on by the one nearest you. T-Bob will be out there, Burbank and Lee, later today. I mentioned $100 million down the drain in the tease into this segment as we close hour number 1 here. It may be more than that. I don't know. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, Shohei Ohtani tore his UCL. And I try to mention Shohei Ohtani on this show, usually at the end of hour number 1 in our shorter segment, once a quarter, because it's absolutely worthwhile. For those that just don't pay any attention, and why would you pay attention to the Angels? It's not really worth your time most of the time. But what this guy has done over the last few years is just shocking. This year, he's the best hitter in baseball. He leads Major League Baseball in home runs with 44. Leads in walks at 78, leads the majors in runs scored at 97. He leads the majors in slugging percentage at 664. He leads in OPS at 1096 at 69. Leads in total bases, leads in OPS plus, which is essentially the metric that most front offices will go to in terms of offensive output. He leads the majors in all those categories. And oh, by the way, you're talking about a guy who leads in hits per 9 innings allowed as a pitcher, and last year led Major League Baseball in strikeouts per 9 innings. He's the best hitter in the game and a top 10 pitcher in the game. He's the greatest baseball player who's ever lived. What he has done the last 3 years has never been done on a baseball field ever. And he's entering his free agent deal this year. His contract's about to expire with the Angels. They said they weren't going to trade him. They were going to try to hold on to him, make a push. He's going to go to free agency, and it's going to be a bidding war. And the thought was, man, this guy's going to get, how much? He's 28 years old. You figure he's got 5 years left of great play on both sides. More than that offensively, probably. You were thinking, what, $600, $700 million? And now he has Tommy John surgery for the second time in 5 years. And you wonder if he ever pitches again. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. You start thinking about the most expensive injuries in the history of sports, this is going to be number 1. This is going to cost him 9 figures off this deal because you cannot pay him as a two-way superstar when he definitely isn't going to pitch next year and may not pitch again. And there's nobody on his side in terms of agent-wise that can prove that he will. No one. I mean, yeah, Jalen Smith got hurt in a bowl game and may have dropped his draft stock. It certainly did. Marcus Lattimore at South Carolina was one of the top running backs in the country, and he had that gruesome knee injury and just couldn't play professionally. I think of Darius Garland at Vanderbilt going into his 1 year in college, but he was still a first-round pick, a lottery pick, and has made a bunch of money. I can't think of any of those that sniffed $100 million. And I'm probably forgetting something along the way. If Tiger never gets hurt, he left a lot of money on the table. But this is the most expensive injury in the history of sports, and it's sad because what he was doing and has done for 3 years just has never been done before. It's hard to even imagine to me as someone who loves baseball and watches a lot of Major League Baseball. I don't watch the Angels very much, but it's just it's a gut punch for sure that Shohei Ohtani will need his second Tommy John surgery entering his free agent year. Still going to be a great hitter next year. You can go hit Tommy John surgery. Bryce Harper did it and came back and now can play defense, but he can't pitch. So we'll see what free agency holds for Shohei this winter, but not going to hold what it once did. That's it for hour number 1 here on our Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Opened talking about the Mason Smith news. The Tigers will be out without their star defensive tackle for the first game of the season. I gave my reaction. Half the segment was reasonable and rational, and the other was hysterical and hysterics and totally unhinged. But it was what it was. Luke Johnson with us at 1:15 talking Saints. Stefan Krajnik at 1:30 talking about the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We'll open hour number 2 with how LSU manages without Mason Smith next week at defensive tackle. I'll give my thoughts there. Tony Tsoukalis covers Alabama. He will be with us at 2:15 to talk about the Crimson Tide and where that quarterback situation stands. And then we'll do some NFL news coming up at 2:30. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. Come on back after Sports Center with us. We got a lot to get to. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
There it is, the extra mile. on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Doug Brown. Broncos' number one wideout Jerry Jeudy carted off the practice field today with a right hamstring injury. He'll have an MRI. The Broncos were holding a joint practice today with the Rams. The Giants get safety Isaiah Simmons in a trade with the Cardinals. Arizona gets a 7th-round pick in return. Giants coach Brian Daboll.
He can do a lot of different things. Explosive, athletic. That's why he was picked where he was picked. Again, we'll get him here and see how he looks and start teaching him our stuff, but excited to have him.
Simmons was the 8th overall pick of the 2020 draft and is now in the final year of his rookie contract. 49ers GM John Lynch tells KNBR Radio the team is exploring trade options for quarterback Trey Lance, but that there's still a strong chance that Lance will stay in San Francisco. He's now QB3 on the roster behind Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. Nationals outfielder Stone Garrett goes on the injured list today. He broke his left leg trying to make a catch against the Yankees on Wednesday night.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. They're close, convenient, and have the parts you need fast, along with excellent customer service from professional parts people you can trust. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. Glad you are with us. Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's. If you're looking for your groceries this weekend, looking to cook something up for the Saints and Texans this weekend, make Rouse's your game day stops, the official grocer and supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Got the bummer news last night that Mason Smith's going to miss the game against Florida State. I gave my thoughts on the situation at the top of the show. If you missed them, you can go catch it on demand. I'll tell you kind of my take. It was, yeah, you signed something and got money for it before it was legal. You have to be in trouble for that. And then I transitioned to the second half of the segment where I blew a gasket and got upset that LSU just keeps catching really, really crummy luck because it's one of your best players, and it was right before it was legal, and then he couldn't be suspended because he had a torn ACL, and then you don't have a week 0 game or a crummy opponent week 1. It's one of the biggest games in 12 years, and all those things had to happen for us to get to this point, and unfortunately they all did happen, so here we are. And that's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, okay, what does it mean? What is LSU in for now against Florida State? And I'll tell you, when we did the most indispensable players on LSU's roster 2 weeks ago, I gave you number 1, Will Campbell, number 2, Harold Perkins, number 3, Jaden Daniels. I didn't have Mason Smith on that list, but he was close. He was close on that list. Malik Neighbors would be close on that list. And the reason is because if Mason Smith goes down, which he's not going to play in this game, I know what happens next. If Harold Perkins goes down, I know what happens next. If Jaden Daniels goes down, I know what happens next. I don't know exactly what happens if Will Campbell goes down. I think Emory Jones goes to left tackle and Lance Hurd plays right tackle, but I don't know. I know that now that Mason Smith is not going to play in the game, that Mekhi Wingo is going to be one defensive tackle and Jacoby and Tank Guillory is going to be the other. Now, we know that Mekhi Wingo last year was a third-team All-American. We know that he was a freshman All-SEC player 2 years ago. Mekhi Wingo is an excellent interior defensive lineman and will be that in the game against Florida State. Jacoby and Guillory has had, by many accounts, a strong fall camp. He was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2020, Came in with Jaquelin Roy, and he's been here for 3 years now. He hasn't done a lot. He only played in 1 game in the 2020 season. He played in 11 games in 2021 and played in 14 games last year. He started 2 games. But he still, in 14 games, made 14 tackles, had a half a tackle for loss, and no sacks. He hasn't been super productive. But he's old, he's a veteran, and he is 6'2", 325 pounds. So what you lose here with Mason Smith is the ability to be massively disruptive and, I believe, get a significant pass rush from the interior, which is a big, big deal in this game. It wouldn't be as big a deal to me if they were playing Mike Leach's air raid because the ball comes out so quick. But in this game, with a Florida State team that's going to rely on its quarterback to move the football and throw from the pocket a lot, Mason Smith's ability to wreck things in the middle of that Florida State offensive line would have been a big deal. Jacobian Guillory doesn't give you that element, to my knowledge. I would love nothing more than for me to sit down on my couch next Sunday and have Tank Guillory get 2.5 sacks. Would love it. I'm not forecasting it. Wingo can do a little bit of that. But Guillory's just going to be a big, strong space holder. He's not a freshman. He's not inexperienced, but he's not a pass rusher. He's an interior pillar that's just going to take space up. And that's good when you got guys like Harold Perkins and Omar Spates running all over the place. Like, that's a positive for him. It's just not what Mason Smith would be. I don't believe Jacobian Guillory is going to demand the double teams that Mason Smith might. So it's a hit. There's no two ways about it. Like, this is a big deal. The other piece of good news here for LSU, as its roster is concerned, it's not a good thing about the suspension. But as far as the roster goes, you have veteran players prepared to come in behind Wingo and Guillory. And there have been times at LSU where that has not been the case. I watched Christian Locketcher and Greg Gilmore play almost every snap at defensive tackle. They just didn't have anybody else to go in there and play. LSU does. Jordan Jefferson, not that one, appeared in 42 games for West Virginia at defensive tackle. He started 17 games at nose tackle for West Virginia. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. His college career started in 2019. Okay? So he can play a little bit. Now, the stats aren't going to blow you away. He hadn't been some all-league player, first-round fringe draft guy. In those 17 starts in 42 games, he's made 54 tackles, 14.5 for loss, 3.5 sacks. But this is not a guy you're pulling out of the signing class and throwing him in there. He's a big, strong, grown man that can go in there and give you some snaps to give Wingo and Guillory a breather. The same can be said to a lesser extent, but the same notion about Jalen Lee. Jalen Lee started his college career in 2020. That was, of course, at Florida. You're looking at a guy who, again, has not been uber productive at Florida, but he's played in 25 college football games. He started 4 of them. He's only got 1 sack, only got 3 tackles for loss. So, again, not productive. But I don't believe if you put Jordan Jefferson and Jalen Lee in the game to give Wingo and Guillory a breather, that Florida State's just going to blow over these guys. That can happen if you have to rely on a freshman. If they have to put Ty G. Hill out there, even Fitzgerald West, who hadn't played defensive tackle much in his college career, you had to put those 2 guys out there next, that's a problem. LSU's depth at defensive tackle is pretty good. And you've still got one of the better players in the league at defensive tackle. So, it hurts from a schematic perspective and really from like a game-changing perspective. I think Mason Smith could change the game. I don't believe, on the other end of the spectrum, that it makes LSU massively vulnerable. I think you lose your edge, you don't become massively disadvantaged. Does that make sense? I would like the edge. I would like the advantage. I would like the All-American, the potential first-round pick, the disruptive player who could make Jordan Travis's life really difficult in the game. But I think that Mekhi Wingo, Tank Guillory, Jordan Jefferson, and Jalen Lee can go in there and hold their own and maybe make some plays. I heard T-Bob talking about this morning. If you extrapolate this whole thing out, what's your biggest concern on defense entering the season when you still had Mason Smith? Well, I don't know about the secondary. Don't know how well they're going to cover. Right, I get it. Well, what can help that? Well, you got to get to the passer. And while I have high hopes for Savion Jones, and I have high hopes for Obi Akufo or Braden Swinson, Quincy Wiggins, Deshaun Womack, not totally sure about how well LSU's going to rush the passer from the edge. I thought that Wingo and Smith would make life a lot easier for those guys on the end because you got to spend a lot of time, effort, and people to deal with them in the middle of the line of scrimmage. That helps your guys on the edge. Now that is probably limited. It's not probably, it is limited. They can now spend some more time helping on the edge because I just don't know how much pass rush you can expect to get from Jacobian Guillory or Jordan Jefferson or Jalen Lee. I think Wingo can do it, but those three guys, So it's a big blow to LSU. There's no question about that. Just how big, we'll have to see. And it'll be something we talk about a lot at the end of next week. We start talking about this game. But as the news came across yesterday, it was a huge, huge bummer for those of us down here in South Louisiana. Looking forward to the Tigers and Noles getting things going a week from Sunday. Speaking of unknowns, Alabama's quarterback is an unknown. We're going to talk a little bit about that next with our guy, Tony Tsoukalas, who covers the Crimson Tide. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Ochsner Health and MD Anderson Cancer Center have partnered to create Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center in southeastern Louisiana. This collaboration is going to do so many great things. It's going to provide patients in our region with access to cancer treatments that are among the most advanced in the country. Ochsner is the first and only provider in Louisiana with a fully integrated cancer program that is based on MD Anderson's practice standards and treatment plans. That means there are customized treatment plans based on the latest research. There's access to MD Anderson's protocols and practice standards, including MD Anderson's specialists and researchers. Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center is going to offer groundbreaking research and innovative therapies. Fantastic news, and even better, expert care is going to be offered in 7 locations across New Orleans, St. Tammany, and Baton Rouge, where right here in the capital city we'll have Ochsner Cancer Center. Ochsner and MD Anderson are going to work together to certify additional sites. Even better news as we continue this fight against cancer that affects all of us in our day-to-day lives. For more information on Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center, just head to ochsner.org.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hello, Samantha, dear, I hope you're feeling fine. And it won't be long until I'm with you all the time. But until then, I spend my money up right down on my last dime.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Brian Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call Hudco Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground.
Charles Hanniger joins us for the Friday edition of Live at Lunch from Rufino's on Highland Road. Troy Macker and Bruce Marshall with us, and we're ready for Week 0. Football is finally here. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moving right along here, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show presented by Rouse's. We'll head out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Right now, our guy Tony Tsoukalos, managing editor for Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals Network, covering Alabama. Tony, how are you, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going quite well. I'm curious about the energy around Alabama, both in the program and in the fan base, as we get ready for this football season, because this one feels a little bit different for a lot of reasons. Let's do a vibe check first on Nick Saban. How's he been at practice and meeting with you guys in media sessions?
I wish I knew what he was like at practice. We don't get to see that. But as far as his overall personality or, kind of, I guess what you said, vibe check during camp, he's actually been pretty positive, pretty happy. For the most part, I mean, I think he's smiled a few times, which is always nice to see, and he's even cracked a few jokes with us. So he's obviously happy with everything. I think maybe he doesn't, unless you bring up the quarterback. I think he's doing pretty good.
We'll get to that here shortly, but obviously the rat poison line, and Lane Kiffin likes to play that up a little bit, but there appears to be some of the opposite of that around Alabama from a national media perspective. Has Saban talked any about that, about people saying, oh, Georgia's better and this thing could be coming to an end and they don't have a quarterback and all that?
Not publicly, but I'm sure it's something that he's probably addressed with his players. I think, at Alabama they use everything they can to provide, any way that they can better their chances of winning, or any kind of bulletin board material that they can use, they do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's been discussed, and especially, to kind of fire up his players, because there is a new, I guess, bully in town, and there's somebody that, Alabama is no longer the team that people are projecting to win the national title. They weren't number one in the preseason polls. And so I don't think that fits well with a team like Alabama, who's, used to being the best of the best. So I'm sure that they're using that for motivation when it comes to just kind of getting the players amped up for the season and making sure everyone's focused and really coming in with a mission.
We'll get to quarterback. Let's start on defense. Obviously, Pete Golding to Oxford, and they usher in a new defensive coordinator in Kevin Steele. We know that Nick kind of runs things over there, but what should look different defensively for this team?
I'm not sure it's going to look drastically different, but I do think that Kevin Steele's coming in with a kind of more of a simplified approach maybe, and I think it's more of just players are doing their job and focusing on, what they're supposed to do on the field. And there's been a really attention to detail and also attention to discipline, because there's been way too many penalties. So that's one thing I guess you could see has changed. But I think sometimes when you looked at Pete Golding's defense, he's a really smart defensive mind, but it almost felt like sometimes the players had too much on their plate. And I'm not completely sure about this, but one thing I think you would see from Kevin Steele's defense is maybe more of a somewhat simplified approach in terms of just letting the players do what they do best and focusing on doing everything right, and getting that down first so they can play with confidence. So that's kind of what I think the biggest difference will be, and then kind of what you'll see. And if the players are playing confident, Alabama has a lot of talent on defense, and I think you can just go from there.
I mean, I look at Alabama's defense from last year, and yet Tennessee scored a lot of points. That's true. And LSU did crack 30, but it took overtime to do that. I didn't think outside of that there was a lot of issues on the Alabama defense, but for some reason people were maligning Pete Golding up and down. Were there issues with Alabama defensively last year?
I think that were just big games, and you look at the games that Alabama lost or almost lost with Pete Golding, his defense. There were games where they just couldn't get stops when they needed to. I mean, Tennessee, there was several times where you would expect Alabama's defense just kind of snap back to it, and it never really happened. And so, and then there was key moments in that LSU game. I mean, you would expect Alabama to get a few stops that they needed to get against LSU. I mean, look, most of the time, I think you'd expect a team like Alabama to stop LSU on a 2-point conversion too. I mean, like, if you're just gonna go to those key kind of moments, Alabama usually owns those, and that's just one. I mean, there's several other times during that game, but I think that there's a lot of Alabama's identity seems to be flipping, and I think that's another thing that I guess there's a hope or maybe even a confidence in Kevin Steele to get that back in terms of just the toughness, the less missed tackles, less bonehead kind of plays, and I think Alabama's going to get back to the kind of fearsome mentality or the tough, blue collar mentality, really on both sides as well, when it comes to picking up yardage on the ground and in short yardage situations on offense, and then also when it comes to just making those clutch stops on defense, and in really just kind of being a fearsome defense. I think those are the kind of things when you look at Alabama that they're really kind of stressing this offseason.
All right, let's move to offense, and I won't bury the lead any longer. Nick Saban said that there, maybe were some progress with the quarterbacks, but maybe it would play into week 2 when Texas comes to Tuscaloosa. What do you think about the quarterback race right now? Is it a 3-horse race, a 2-horse race? Does somebody have a lead? Thoughts?
I would, if you're asking me, I think it's more of a 2-horse race between Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. I would expect Jalen Milroe to be the player that they trot out against Middle Tennessee State. Haven't been told that directly, and I don't think Nick Saban's going to announce that until game day, But I wouldn't be surprised, just given from what we've been hearing, that if Jalen Milroe is that quarterback. But I expect both of them to play, and I think Nick Saban's made it pretty clear that just because the starter will be named doesn't necessarily mean the quarterback competition's over. So, if it's Jalen Milroe first, I think Ty Simpson's still in it. And if it's the other way around, I think, Jalen Milroe's still in it. So it's a really close battle. And I don't necessarily – I believe Saban in that it might not be decided until maybe even a few games into the season. I think the only thing that you have to say about that is, it's not like they can wait a long time, because that game against Texas in week 2 is going to be really tough. So they probably want to know who their guy is by then. But I would expect at the very least for both of those guys to play, both Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson to play against Middle Tennessee State.
Over the last 25 years, no one has adapted better than Nick Saban to the changes in college football. At one point, we heard the philosophy from Nick Saban that our drives are going to be fine if they end in a kick. It could be an extra point. It could be a field goal. It could be a punt. If we do that, we'll be fine. Feels like that's probably not the case in college football now. You probably got to go score. What is he asking of his quarterbacks now?
I don't actually think that that's true. I think Alabama is still probably okay if they end in a kick. I mean, are you going to beat a Tennessee like that? It depends. I mean, look, even, in the game against Tennessee where they couldn't stop, I mean, they were a made field goal away from probably winning that game if they get the kick off again. So, I don't necessarily think that Alabama needs to do anything totally different in terms of what their quarterback's going to do. If anything, they got over-reliant on Bryce Young, which is easy to do because he's such a special talent. Yeah. But they were reliant on what they wanted him to do on the offense. And I think balancing everything out, utilizing the run game, because Alabama's going to have a really good stable of running backs, perhaps the best in the nation if you look at just the depth of that unit. So you take advantage of what you have. I think the quarterbacks will not have to do as much, and it's a first-year starter, so I think things are going to be simplified. But I don't see them going to 3 yards in a cloud of dust or having just game manager, quote unquote, quarterbacks. I think that every one of these quarterbacks that are in this competition can make plays, and I think that they have the weapons to do so. It might take a little bit to maybe work that in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe more of a vanilla offense early. But by the end of the year, I don't think Alabama plans, if everything goes right, I don't think they plan to have some drastic different way that they're going to use their quarterback.
Tony Tsoukalis is the managing editor for Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals Network, joining us here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline, talking Tide. Outline, what does it look like in terms of playmakers for the Tide at wide receiver?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of capable guys, but there's not necessarily one guy that you would circle as the star receiver. There's not that number one go-to target. I think that's really the biggest fear from people in the unit. When you look at this team, there's not that that number one first-round pick, at least that we know of. I think there's been a lot of positive hype around Malik Benson, the JUCO transfer. I've heard a lot of things during camp about the improvement of Jermaine Burton, the Georgia transfer from last year. And, if you look back, Burton had 300 yards over his last 3 games. He really kind of seemed to be turning the corner. So hearing that heading into the preseason camp, I think that's pretty encouraging for Alabama. So maybe those 2 guys. There's 3 sophomore receivers, or they were freshmen last year, and Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice, and Kendrick Law. They're all very good. I could see them all contributing. And then you've got Corey Brooks, who's been a very clutch receiver and someone that's been productive over, especially last year for Alabama as well. So there's a large pool to choose from. I just don't know if anyone knows who's going to be the star from that unit.
How much buzz is there around that Texas game?
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah, I think it's not often that Alabama has a big time Power 5 opponent come to Tuscaloosa, and then now with if you look at how close that game was last year, then you look at just how good Texas is projected to be. I mean, that could be one of the best regular season games of the season if it lives up to the hype. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement about that one, and I think there's also a little bit of nervousness from Alabama fans because you just talked about the quarterback position. You need a quarterback heading into that game, so it'll be pretty interesting to see how that all plays out.
That's my last question. Last vibe check here. What's the fan base feel about you? I mean, you, in your words, said there's kind of a new bully in town, and there's a little trepidation about the quarterback. So how does the fan base feel? That's been a pretty proud group over the last 15 years.
I think there's some cautious optimism. I think there's always going to be some fans that are overly concerned, or
Sure.
just there's some people that panic, and then there's some people that kind of refuse to panic, and so you kind of find I feel like the most of the Alabama fans are somewhere in the middle, where they're cautiously optimistic. I think there's a general belief among Alabama fans that if the quarterback position is at least competent, this is a really good team. Now, sure, if they can't find a quarterback, then nobody in today's era is going to be able to make it without a quarterback. But I think when you look at all the pieces that Alabama has, I would say most people, whether it's in the program or just the fans, or I think most people are, cautiously optimistic about this team because it really could be a contender. All it needs is that quarterback position, and they've got talented options there. So if it falls into place the way it really can, it's not even that much of a stretch, I think Alabama could be a really good team this year.
Tony, we appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, anytime.
He is Tony Tsoukalis, managing editor for Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals Network, covering Alabama. It's just a little different over there, and that doesn't mean they're not going to win the national championship. I don't think anybody would be stunned if they won the national championship. They've clearly been passed by Georgia, who's won 2 in a row. Doesn't mean you can't jump right back in front of them. LSU had been passed long by 2019, but it's one team. And it's just they've had that run of Bryce Young and Mac Jones and Tua and Hurts, and it's been Heisman Trophy-esque quarterback play for a long time. And I just am very comfortable sitting here making a preseason prognostication that I don't think Jalen Milroe is going to be in New York for the Heisman. Like, I just don't. I don't know anything about Ty Simpson. He hadn't played very much. I've watched Milroe play at least. It just doesn't feel like that to me. And I might feel differently if he had Jalen Waddle and Ruggs and Devontae Smith and Amari Cooper to throw to. They'd be like, well, he's going to have a great offensive line. Those guys will be open, and you just got to kind of manage things. But it's like I said to Tony there. I just don't think you can be okay if you're Alabama, feeling like, if we just got to punt a good bit, we'll be fine. Defense will show up. I don't want to try to beat Ohio State like that. I don't want to try to beat Georgia like that. I don't want to try to beat Clemson like that. I certainly don't want to try to beat Caleb Williams like that. I just feel like if you play in a big game these days, you need to go score 30 points. And being okay, just kind of running the ball, we got to punt, we'll play some field position here or there, I'm just not real confident in that. And I'm not saying that's all Alabama can do. They might be high flying and awesome. They got a bunch of 4 and 5 stars running around. I'm just reasonably concerned if you've got Jalen Milroe out there trying to compete with some of the best quarterbacks and teams in the country. I don't think he's ready to do that. We will see quickly if he's the guy against Texas. It is interesting to me that they brought Tyler Buckner in and nobody seems to think that's the guy. I figured, like many, you bring him in, he's your dude. But we'll see. Alabama with Texas week 2 after a cupcake in week number 1 next weekend. We'll take a timeout, come back here a little from Dennis Allen. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade, time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me, like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Officially, it's a fridge full of beer. Unofficially, it's free AC. Coors Light, the official beer of everything unofficial.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Scooncha, fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. Mike Triplett joins us from Saints Camp and our final SEC check-in on the Missouri Tigers. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
If I'm not mistaken, and you out there that are driving will know, I think I just heard thunder. My grass is just burnt to a crisp in the front yard, just yellow and dead. I guess I could bring the hose out there and water it or something, run a sprinkler, but just figured you usually don't need that because it usually rains every afternoon. It doesn't ever rain now, apparently. But it might be raining right now. Maybe it's just thunder, but it might be raining, which would be great for the health of my grass. I have no plans this afternoon. Would like to go for a run, but if that gets canceled, I'll be just fine. But hey, if it rains, I'm not going to complain about it. I want to get to a humorous segment about the Arizona Cardinals here shortly, but do want to go to some Dennis Allen audio from earlier today, talking about the week that is to come. Of course, the Saints will play the Texans in their final preseason game this weekend, and then we'll look to cut down to 53, and you'll get ready to go play in the season opener in a couple of weeks. So the question was asked to Dennis Allen, hey, y'all canceled your joint practices with the Texans. Last week, you had joint practices with the Chargers, so you didn't play your starters. Does the fact that you're not having joint practices impact starter reps in the game?
No, look, again, I kind of addressed that yesterday too, so no, I don't think that has any effect on what we do in the game.
We'll see if they put guys out there or not. We don't have a sample size on Dennis Allen. So he last year only had 2 preseason games. We'll see if the guys are out there. I do know that the Jets are going to play everybody for a little bit and dress everybody for a little bit because I watched Hard Knocks on Tuesday. But I don't know what the Saints are going to do. The other question was asked, with the cut down looming, is there a bigger emphasis on guys and helping on special teams and that being a valued asset?
I think it's a combination of things. We take all those things into account. And, if a guy's not getting significant snaps on offense or defense, he's got to add value on game day. Well, how do you add value on game day? You have to add value through special teams. So I think all those things are taken into account.
And this probably goes without saying because the offensive linemen outside, I guess, field goal or whatever, but the guys you're talking about here are big-time reserve receivers. Like, when I say big-time, I mean like down-the-line reserve receivers, linebackers, and secondary folks. And there are guys on this roster that are looking to make it and are going to have to add this to their resume. And I do think that because of the nature of some joint practices and the nature of what practice is and, trying to get work without getting guys hurt, special team snaps are big in the preseason games. It's a live go. You're rushing the kickers. You're trying to block kicks. You're setting up coverages. You're tackling returners, like the whole deal. You can do some of that in practice, but in the game, in the games, like you're doing it. So I think special teams is something to watch this weekend between the Saints and the Texans. The last soundbite from Dennis Allen we'll have is how do you go about filling out your 53 plus the practice squad?
I think you're looking at the total picture in terms of the football team, and the individual position coaches typically are kind of looking at their position and what fits for their position and the roles within that particular group. Coordinators are looking at their side of the ball and how does it affect their side of the ball. Obviously, Riz is looking at special teams, and myself, Mickey, Michael, Kai, Jeff, we're all kind of looking at the whole totality of the team and how everything fits.
And that's Dennis Allen with more riveting content. He's just not the most energetic and informative answer giver, quite frankly. But hearing things from him oftentimes weighs a little bit more than hearing them from me, so we like to hear from him when we can. Outside of the Saints, I wanted to hit on one NFL talking point because it's fascinating sometimes to look at something that you pay no attention to day to day and just see kind of how things have materialized. The Arizona Cardinals today shipped Isaiah Simmons out for a 7th-round pick. Isaiah Simmons was their first-round pick in 2020. They weren't going to sign him to a 5th-year option. They're just trying to get something for him. You remember Isaiah Simmons? He was on the team that LSU played at Clemson. He was played some safety, played some linebacker. They couldn't really find a great spot for him. Had 7.5 sacks in 3 years and did make some tackles and certainly played. It wasn't like he couldn't get on the field, but he just never became the 8th overall selection good. But you start to go back over what the Cardinals have done in the first round over the last 5 years. The 5 years prior to Simmons. It's too early to tell on a draft pick they had in April or May. But 2020, 19, 18, 17, 16, you want to know how to have your roster erode from a playoff contender to a laughingstock and have your coach fired and have to restart everything? Well, this is a pretty good indicator of that. Their 2020 pick in the first round was Isaiah Simmons, who they shipped out for a 7th-rounder. That's not exactly what you're looking for with the 8th pick in the draft. They had the first pick in the draft in 19, and they took Kyler Murray. Is that great? No. Was Josh Allen available? Yeah. Did you take him? No. So you hate to see that. I mean, Josh Jacobs in that draft, who's fantastic. Nick Bosa was the 2nd pick. He's great. Quinnen Williams was the 3rd pick. He's great. Devin White was the 5th pick. He's great. Like, you could have gotten a really good player there, and you've got an average quarterback who doesn't try very hard. In 2018, your first-round pick was Josh Rosen. He was with you for 1 year, and you shipped him out of town. Bust. In 2017, you took Hassan Reddick, who had 16 sacks last year. Great pick. They just had 16 sacks for the Eagles because he had a nice 4th year. They declined the 5th-year option, and he signed elsewhere. So you actually hit on that pick. You just sent him out of town before he realized his potential. And then in 2016, you took Robert Kimdichie with the 29th pick in the first round. He had 4.5 sacks in 4 years, and they waived him in 2019, 3 years into his deal. So Kimdichie waived after 3 years. Reddick shipped out after 4 years before he realized his potential. Rosen was with you for 1 year and was cut. Kyler Murray plays PlayStation and doesn't look at film. And Isaiah Simmons got traded for a 7th-rounder. They aren't hitting on any first-round picks. These are first-round picks. Kyler's the 1st pick in the draft. Simmons, 8th pick in the draft. Rosen, 10th pick in the draft. Reddick, 13th pick in the draft. They're not getting anything out of him. That's how your franchise falls apart. The best way to get cost-controlled great players is to draft them, and the Cardinals suck at it. Not that it's all that relevant here in South Louisiana, but when they did that, I went, are they doing this annually? Yup, they sure are. Search continues out there in Arizona for a good football team. They're not going to have one this year, I don't believe, and that division is not all that friendly to be in, be quite frank. All right, that's a look at the Cardinals. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we will play some Take It or Leave It. We will get on down the road. You're listening to a Thursday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is the website. Is your closet just cluttered with junk and suitcases and shoes and suits and belts and everything's just a mess? Get a custom closet. David Duvall and his team can help you with that. It starts with a free consultation and a questionnaire. What do you have? Sometimes Man of the house needs to walk out because the woman's got to say how many shoes she has. It happens. David Duvall and his team, they'll take the information. We'll take the male's information, then we'll go ahead and look at what we got to do. And then they'll put a custom closet in with cubbies and shelves and racks, and they can just make your life easier and more efficient with a customized closet. It's not a great time to move. Interest rates are not super awesome, but that doesn't mean you can't upgrade your living situation. One Bath and Closets is happy to help you do that. Go to the website, go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Get that free consultation. Look at the testimonials. Check out pictures of their great work, and give David Duvall and his team a call. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you. We'll certainly appreciate that. One Bath and Closets. You can find them at onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Scooncha fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly...
On Friday's OTB, the penultimate day before college football week 0 gets underway, we'll celebrate the return. Plus, talk more Tigers, FSU. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Wrapping things up here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you, as always, by Rouse's. If you're looking to do your weekend grocery shopping, get on by Rouse's. It's such a great shopping experience inside the store. I love it. Love going there on Fridays. T-Bob will be there at Burbank and Lee on this right in 11 minutes. But if you don't have time to get and do your grocery shopping, Rouse's makes it so easy. Download the Rouse's app. You can do your grocery shopping online right at the tip of your fingers. They'll have your personal shopper. Go in there and get your grocery shopping done. If you spend $35 or more, you don't spend a cent extra on pickup. If you spend over $100 and you use the code Rouse's20, Saints20. Rouse's20. Saints20. If you use that code, $20 off your grocery order of over $100. So get on by Rouse's and do your grocery shopping. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here. Big and Rich Coming to Your City is no longer College Game Day's intro song. You'll miss it. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. You got to say "Coming to Your City," because that's
Right,
how they
right.
would. That's how they would say it on the on this. Look, Bubba Sparks back in the early 2000s is the greatest College Game Day intro ever. The Bubba Sparks song was fantastic. I was in like middle school, high school, early college. That's where like the nostalgia kicks in. I don't need to hear "Coming to Your City." Like I that's not my favorite thing. I'm curious to see who they'll have. It's got to have some energy, got to have some juice. So we'll see who's next. But Big and Rich did announce via their social media they're not going to be it. So I'll tell you this: I'm assuming that College Game Day is coming on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I will be curious. I will be tuned in at 8 o'clock to see what the song is. They've got me there. Now I'm not certain I'm going to listen to them talk about Vanderbilt and Hawaii all that long, but I will listen for the song to see what it is.
Nationals pitcher Steven Strasburg will reportedly retire after being unable to rehab a recent surgery on his neck.
Yeah.
He hasn't pitched a full season since 2019. Strasburg is a Hall of Famer. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it. It feels like Strasburg's been hurt a lot, but the fact of the matter is, like, he played 13 years in Major League Baseball. He won over 10 games, 6 straight years from 14 to 19. He led the National League, the majors in wins in 2019 with 18. He also led in innings pitched that year. He was brilliant in the Nationals World Series run. Like, he was great. And, like, I'll never forget his first start. He came up, I was like, oh, this guy, no one's ever going to hit this guy. I mean, that stuff was just frightening. 97, ridiculous slider, changeup, diving and darting. The Cubs had to deal with him in the playoffs in 2017, and it was not fun. They found a way to win the game, but it wasn't because of Strasburg. They took Strasburg out and allowed the Cubs to hit a 2-run double to tie the game. But he was really good, and he absolutely lived up to number 1 pick in the draft. Like, that's a great number 1 pick in the draft by Washington to get 13 years of a lot of high-level baseball. But he's not a Hall of Famer. I'll leave it.
All right, moving on. Trey Lance is a third-teamer with the 49ers. That's an all-time bad number 3 pick. Take it or leave it.
I mean, you have to take this. If y'all are not aware of who was picked after Trey Lance in that draft, it is unbelievable. I think I went through this a couple of weeks ago, but now that the story's progressed, like, it's worth repeating. San Francisco traded up to take Trey Lance at 3. This is what happened in 4 through 12. Kyle Pitts to Atlanta, I think, is going to be great if they can ever find a way to get him the ball. Jamar Chase to Cincinnati, he's an all-pro. Jalen Waddle to Miami, he's great. Penei Sewell's been excellent for Detroit. They took him at 7. J.C. Horn at Carolina has been a starter and a really good player. Patrick Surtain is a pro bowler at corner for the Broncos. I'm going in order. I'm not even skipping anybody. Devontae Smith was next to the Eagles at 10. He's great. Justin Fields, Chicago, to be determined. And then Micah Parsons went at 12. That is, I mean, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Penei Sewell, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devontae Smith, and Micah Parsons are all really good players. Some have already made Pro Bowls. Some have been all pro. Like, that is all those guys are great ads. And you think about the fact that the 49ers are already really good and have one of the best rosters, if not the best roster in the NFL. And you could add Micah Parsons to that. You could add Jamar Chase to that. Patrick Surtain on the out. Like, that is an all-time bad pick. And they've found a way to overcome it because they found diamond in not even the rough, in buried below the mud in a quarterback. But, like, that's a miss to not have those guys on your team.
All right, last one here. Texas A&M Athletic Director Ross Bjork said that there is no panic after a 5-7 season. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I don't think there's any panic. What it does is it creates panic more quickly if things go south. If they don't look very good on offense in the opener against whatever cupcake they play, and then they go to South Beach against Miami, against a team that went 5-7 last year, just like them, and they can't score and lose, that's panic. What you've done is created the ability for panic to show up 2 weeks into the season. So I buy that they're done with that. It was 5-7. That's over. You have a new team with a sophomore quarterback and a defense with a lot of 5 stars and a ridiculous receiving core that should be awesome. But you're not panicking today. You will if things go sideways and you can't beat the Mississippis, or Bama beats you by 40 again, or LSU beats you by 40, and all of a sudden you've got a bad season. So I'm with him. They don't have to panic right this second, but they could quickly. That's what that means. So that's your Thursday edition of Take It or Leave It here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Fun show today. Fast-moving show today. I can't believe it's already over. We reacted to Mason Smith news at the top of the show. He'll miss LSU's season opener. Luke Johnson on the Saints at 1:15. Those are 2 big LSU and Saints topics there. If you would do us a favor, we would really appreciate it. Go to YouTube, type in Hunt on Saints and Hunt on LSU, and subscribe to those 2 channels. All your LSU football is headed to Hunt on LSU. All your Saints football headed to Hunt on Saints. It's on demand each and every day. Stefan Krajnik talk Mississippi State with us at 1:30. Tony Sukalis talking Alabama at 2:15. That's all on demand, 1045ESPN.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on Google and YouTube, where our full shows are every single day. We're back tomorrow for a Friday show presented by Corks, talking some football. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further View. See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good Thursday.